Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. Hello, Maraya Brown here. Welcome back to the Women's Vibrancy Code podcast. This is December, and this episode is a little bit different in order. You may have noticed that I generally do a solo podcast, and then I interview a guest, and then a solo podcast. And we had scheduled Jen Pike, which I'm so excited to bring her to all of you. I love her podcast myself. And she had a family thing come up and rescheduled. And so I thought, well, I'll just record another one. So we're going to talk today about stress levels around the holidays, and specifically speak to ambitious women who are doing many things, serving many people, particularly that CEO out there, that founder out there, that female entrepreneur who is burning the candle at both ends. So let's talk about adrenal well-being. And then I also was just looking through the podcast, and man, it is so lovely to read the reviews. Every once in a while, I just go in there and it just makes my heart soar. So really, truly, when you write a review, I really do read it. Here's one on January 16th, 2022. This podcast resonates with me. Maraya covers so many topics in areas where women are desperate for help. I love her take on feminine libido and how to boost our sensuality and feel vibrant in every area of our lives. Great podcast. Highly recommend. Thank you. I see Kavita said, I'm blown away with Maraya's knowledge. Not only does she have the credentials, but she also has the passion, dedication, and charisma to spread joy to other women and offer them ways to take control of their health. Very excited for her podcast. Thank you, Kavita. Oh my gosh, I'm going to scroll through. There's so many of them. I love this. It just really makes me so happy. From Mel Film, thank you for doing this podcast. The advice from the guests is helpful since it's based on experience and not just professional opinions. The subjects are real and raw. My new favorite podcast. Yahoo! I mean, really, truly, I do this because I love it. I left brick and mortar running the women's health after 15 years of running the women's health in various locations, because I wanted to be able to reach more people. And once I'm online, I have that possibility. And yes, I'm also bringing it in and hosting in-person women's retreats where, we've got to get on airplanes and come together. And that really fuels me and feeds me as well. But being able to do this podcast just means the world to me, to be able to offer it up to the world. Okay. So let's talk specifically about adrenal health and adrenal well-being. So first of all, why am I talking about this? Well, specifically, I'm doing this around the holiday season because it tends to be, for some, kind of a stressful time. We're navigating family stuff, we're navigating travel, we're navigating cold and flu season, trying to juggle work as well as family, not to mention the nuances of how each individual has been handling the pandemic, and do they want to stay in your home or do they want to stay in a hotel, and do they want a mask, and all of the stuff that's just adding stress. Not to mention, for me, kids are out of school. I still have work to get done. And, we're doing our best to make it all happen while also making sure we have quiet time to celebrate the holidays and make sure that we're giving gratitude and gifts. So for those of you, I'm just going to kind of list off a few symptoms. And if you hear any of this and you're like, that's me, I didn't realize that was my adrenals, then listen up. So feeling tired, tired at any point in the day. Okay. If you wake up feeling tired, if you have your afternoon slump, if you can't get off the couch in the evening time, right? Feeling tired is definitely one of those symptoms of adrenal fatigue. Insomnia, specifically that like 2 to 4 a.m. wake up, can definitely be an adrenal wake up. And it's very common during that chapter of perimenopause. So women age 35 to 55. I will say I definitely notice more pronounced, 2 to 4 a.m. wake up for me right now in my life during my fall time, in my 28-day cycle, in my moon cycle, or my PMS week. Okay. And so I really make sure to preemptively address that. So insomnia can be a byproduct of adrenals. If you've been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, if you're having memory impairment or brain fog, depression, anxiety, poor sexual function or low libido, hot flashes, if you've been told that your hormones are out of balance, if you're experiencing water retention, if you're experiencing new weight gain, specifically around the abdomen, constipation, or if you require caffeine or magnesium in order to have a bowel movement, that's still in my world considered constipation. Also diarrhea, chronic migraines, loss of appetite, sometimes weight loss, craving salt can definitely be a side effect of your adrenals needing some extra love. Allergies and food sensitivities, okay? Increased cortisol. So if you've had your cortisol level tested, it's not tested through blood. We want to look at a 24-hour cortisol curve. And I'm going to talk more about specific lab values in regard to cortisol and DHEA specifically that you can definitely look at, or I can look at to see quantifiably at what's going on with your adrenals. Menstrual irregularities can be another one. Pronounced PMS or irritability. I think those are the big ones that I can think of off the top of my head. So obviously a lot of women, insulin resistance. So if you have insulin crashes, if your blood sugars seem like they're super unstable, if you've ever been told that you're pre-diabetic, you have PCOS, I'm definitely thinking adrenals need some love. And estrogen dominance can definitely be a thing. So why address it now? Okay. Maybe you're listening and you're like, oh man, my adrenals have crashed. I mean, in my story, I didn't ask for help. I didn't. I was a women's health provider. I was running the women's health on the Big Island of Hawaii. I'd been working at a federally funded clinic and then a private practice. I ran a Planned Parenthood. Then I was driving anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours away to do a 24-hour shift at the hospital, attending births, and also seeing patients in the clinic for obstetric care. And then also the second midwife attending home births. And then, oh, by the way, I gave birth to a baby, and then we packed and moved, and then I gave birth to another baby, and I was tired. I had a lot of these symptoms, and I didn't ask for help. I think my ego was affected, especially I'm supposed to be the expert, and I was embarrassed to go to some of the other experts in my community that theoretically send patients my way. I'm supposed to be perfect, which is so asinine when I think about it in background. We get to receive. Like, I'm hosting an in-person women's retreat in March, and there are some potent, powerful women coming to this retreat. You betcha I am looking right now to find my retreat that I'll go to in February, and I will go tap in, tune in, turn on, and receive from someone else. Because I'm going to do the do, and I want to make sure I'm showing up with a filled up cup. So we get to ask for help. So anyway, address it now, hopefully before you crash. In my scenario, I finally got help, and my thyroid and my adrenals had crashed. Of course I was tired. Okay. And if you're already in adrenal fatigue, please, please, please heed my words. Listen to some of the suggestions I'm going to make. Reach out my way. And let's address it before it gets worse, okay? Because if it continues to not be addressed, that's when you're diagnosed with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. That's the women who are trying to get pregnant and they're really struggling with infertility. Now they've gotten to a point where their menstrual cycle is all over the place, right? Like I mentioned earlier, they've lost their libido. There's no energy. There's high stress. Their relationships are really bearing the brunt of the fatigue and the irritability, right? And then it puts pressure on the relationship. And the last thing that I want is for you to be in that scenario. In my scenario, I did not want to be touched. It was the first time in my marriage where we were really struggling. And so we started going to therapy at the same time that I was seeing a functional medicine provider to start to feel better. And man, once my thyroid and adrenals got back on board, it was like the lights turned on, okay? For some of you, you might be losing hair or noticing thinning hair. Okay, that can definitely be a sign of fatigue. Okay, so, sorry, not of fatigue, of adrenal fatigue. So what are the adrenals? They are back like on either side of our back, kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Oh, I wish you could see me right now. I have my fists back. Like if you make chicken arms, back, right about where your fists are at the base of your ribs on your back. Your adrenals are right about there. They're small and they manage the fight, flight, or freeze response. Okay, so they're the main thing that's going to be producing cortisol in that fight, flight, or freeze response. But there's other hormones that are happening during that response. We're going to have an adrenaline spike, right? The adrenals also produce something called DHEA. I've done a whole nother podcast on DHEA. And the other thing that's important to consider with the adrenals, specifically for the ambitious woman, you go, no, I've got more work to do. No, I've got more work to do. I'll deal with my health later. Yes, I'm tired. I'll just add some more caffeine. Yes, I've got salt cravings. I'll just eat more salt. Yes, I'm not sleeping. I'll just pop another Ambien or try some melatonin. But what happens is most of the women that come into my space are right around that age 35 to 55 age range, and they're ambitious women. So they're that type A personality. And so the other piece that the adrenals play, which is really important for you to hear during that specific age range, is as the ovaries start to slow down and we progress through perimenopause into menopause, it is predominantly the adrenals that take over the brunt of the work. Okay. So average age of menopause is 51 and a half. How do you define menopause? Once you've gone 12 months without a menstrual bleed. Okay. Perimenopause, the chapter before menopause, can start as early as age 35. And so for the woman that goes, does, works hard, doesn't take breaks, doesn't fit in meditation, mindfulness, breathing, self-care, creativity time, for the woman who exercises hard, diets hard, and doesn't listen into her inner rhythm and her circadian rhythm and her adrenals, then the experience of perimenopause and menopause can be quite atrocious. And hopefully that's not your scenario, but then the women come to me and now they're having horrible hot flashes, horrible weight gain, horrible irritability, migraines, all of that stuff. Because the ovaries have started slowing down the production of our sex hormones. The adrenals get the knock on the door, but the adrenals are too tired. Okay, so now we got nothing. It's not nothing. It comes from other places as well, but it's really important for you to know the adrenals are important, okay? So the tests, if you're like, I don't know, I've got all those symptoms, what tests do I ask for? One of my favorite tests is called the Dutch Plus. So Dutch stands for dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. Yes, it comes from urine. It just ships to your door. You collect it at home. I like the Dutch Plus because then it adds on what's called the cortisol awakening response. So we can see what is your cortisol first thing in the morning, at the 30-minute mark, and the 60-minute mark. So it shows me how your body responds to waking up. And it also looks at your sex hormones as well as your DHEA. And as a reminder, DHEA is an adrenal hormone, okay? Not just your estradiol, which is the main form of estrogen that's often tested in blood, but also your estrone and your estriol. And it shows us how your body gets rid of various hormones as well as some organic acids, okay? I love this test. It is so valuable to look quantifiably. I can make a lot of guesses about what's going on in your well-being based on your symptom presentation and your age. And there's some of the suggestions I'm going to make. You're welcome to start, but it sure makes a big difference to be able to look at those test results so that we can add on the extra nuances to really help you. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about stages of adrenal fatigue. One thing for you to know is as cortisol goes up, okay, the body is under stress. Remember, stress can be real or imagined. There's a reason why you can watch a horror movie and your heart is racing and your palms are sweating. It's completely in your imagination, but your body is physiologically having that fight, flight, or freeze response. And so what happens is as cortisol goes up, it increases something called or stimulates what's called aromatase, which increases your estrogen. Okay, we really don't want estrogen dominance. It's not the greatest of scenarios. Okay, for the woman who's approaching menopause, yes, your estrogen is dropping. Yes, we do often want more estrogen, but we want to get it in healthy forms. And we always want to make sure that it's being balanced by progesterone. I saw a client in the last couple of weeks, and she sees a big fancy doctor up on the Upper East Side in Manhattan who had put her on estrogen and she's beyond menopause, so she stopped bleeding and was just doing progesterone cyclically, meaning just 2 weeks out of the month, which that kind of makes sense for a woman who is not to menopause yet, because it's kind of like the birth control pill, trying to kind of mirror the estrogen and the progesterone that the body is naturally producing. But first of all, this isn't natural. It's coming from synthetic form. Second, once you're beyond menopause, you need progesterone. It doesn't need to be cyclic anymore. We want that progesterone to balance the estrogen, okay? So the other thing to keep in mind regarding DHEA is it naturally decreases from age 30 on. And by menopause, it can be down as much as 60%. And so what's going on is then we're losing that feedback loop unless we're giving the adrenals some extra support. And what is DHEA? Well, it's not a hormone, it's a hormone precursor. And it converts to both estrogen and testosterone, as well as a little bit progesterone. It has big impacts on stamina, libido, immune health, energy level, weight, hormone balancing, all of it. It's a beautiful hormone precursor. And in the US, it's available over the counter. It also can be really helpful to address atrophic vaginitis. So for that woman who's really struggling with vaginal dryness, as she progresses through perimenopause and menopause, you can get DHEA suppositories. And then often with PCOS, I'll see early in the morning kind of a low cortisol, and then in the evening, high cortisol. So there's a lot that we can see in labs. But talking about the stages, so we have arousal, we have adaptation, and we have exhaustion. So the first stage is arousal, where cortisol and DHEA are both high, okay? And often, if that's you, you might not have any symptoms. You're listening to this and you're like, I actually feel great, but I'm listening anyway. Thanks for listening anyway. Still take notes, okay? It's very possible that your body is being exposed to stress. The adrenals are pumping out cortisol and pumping out DHEA, and you just don't necessarily realize it because symptoms haven't started yet. And it's not all bad, but think about in an unconscious level, if the unconscious mind is being chased by a lion, being chased by a lion, being chased by a lion, there's a saber-toothed tiger, there's a saber-toothed tiger, there's a fire, your nervous system gets super wound up. And so it can show up in lots of different ways. And maybe it doesn't necessarily feel like really specific symptoms. But what happens is if it goes unchecked, then we go into the adaptation stage where the cortisol is still high, but DHEA starts to go down. And there tends to be increased feelings of stress, maybe some anxiety, maybe some mood swings kicking in, okay? And then if we continue to not address it, maybe the hair starts to thin, maybe you're noticing, there's so many different things, but then we go into stage 3, which is exhaustion, where both cortisol and DHEA are low and the adrenals are like, sorry, I got nothing for you, okay? Not a good scenario for all the reasons that I brought up earlier. So let's talk about some things that you can do with simple diet modification, lifestyle change. Let's talk a little bit about how much time, because for those of you that have been in my space, you know that I'm not a big fan of Band-Aid care. This isn't like, let me give you a supplement that's going to fix everything and like next week you're going to be all better, right? It's likely taken years to build up to whatever stage you're in. And that doesn't mean it's going to take years to fix it, but we do have to have some patience here. Okay. So some important things that you can start doing to address it. Number one is sleep. You have got to get quality sleep, my friend. So coming up with a solid sleep routine, like think about your sleep routine as the beginning of your 24-hour period. Okay. Can you turn off screens? Can you start slowing down your words, slowing down your movements, paying attention to your eyes' exposure to light? Can we stop the caffeine during the day so that way you're able to actually get quality sleep at night? Okay. Can we, if you're having that 2 to 4 a.m. wake up because your adrenals are exhausted, let's go in. We'll talk about some things that you can do for the adrenals. Okay. Making sure that you're not snacking at night and not using sedatives such as alcohol or Ambien, that kind of thing. You might feel like you're sleeping like a log, but you're just a log using sedatives, and it's actually not truly restorative sleep. So the gut doesn't get to rest and digest, and the brain doesn't get to file away those lessons learned, okay? Exercise. And it's not just any kind of exercise, right? We want, in an ideal world, for you to be mirroring your body movement with where you are in your moon cycle, whether or not you're bleeding. Okay, so if you're beyond menopause or you're on contraception and you're like, I don't have a menstrual bleed. Okay, you still follow the moon. Okay, moon pulls tides. So during our bleeding time, so to speak, or maybe it's your full moon or your new moon time, that is not the time to go lift big weights and run the marathon and sprint up a big mountain. That is the time to do more like yin yoga, gentle walking, be patient with yourself, some gentle stretching, right? Whereas when you're in your ovulatory time, girl, go get it. Lift those big weights, run your marathon, sprint up the mountain, whatever it may be. That's the time to move. Muscles respond very differently. The hormones respond very differently, okay? If you're a runner, we have to think if your adrenals are already tired, now you put on your running shoes, you got your cute outfit, you got your earbuds in, your play mix, ready to go for a run. You step out the door and poof, there you go on the run. And the body's like, what are we running from? Where's the saber-toothed tiger? Okay. So in some scenarios, women think that they're doing themselves good by picking up running again. But if your adrenals are already tired, is it sending the wrong message? Okay. So yes, body movement is important. It's important every day. But making sure that it's body movement that is honoring the stage in your adrenal health, the stage in chapters of your life, and the stage in your 28-day cycle. So sleep is number one, exercise number two, blood sugar management would be number three, okay? It is so important that we keep your blood sugar steady throughout the day, okay? If you feel like you don't really know what that means, some simple things to do. Wait 1 second. I can hear the kids being loud downstairs. We are in the holidays, which means we're allowing the kids to stay up later, hopefully sleep in. My son is really good at, my daughter's not so much. And they're at each other just a tad. Okay. I was talking about blood sugars. Okay. Blood sugars, in my opinion, protein. So important. Most women simply need to get more protein in. Okay. We have got to get in quality protein. That does not mean it has to be from meat sources. It can be from broccoli. It can be from tofu, from nuts and seeds and sprouts and lentils and beans and rice mixed together. Okay. There's lots of ways to get ample protein in, but you likely could benefit from getting more protein in on a more regular basis. Most diets that I look at are super refined sugar heavy, even if you don't realize it, okay? So within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, you're getting in some protein. Maybe it's a handful of nuts. Maybe you're going to mix it in with some vegetables. Yes, vegetables for breakfast. Can you believe it? Maybe you'll make some homemade jello. Maybe you'll have a hard-boiled egg, some avocado on a gluten-free toast, right? If you're going to have yogurt or granola, mix in some extra nuts and seeds, maybe some ground flax, okay? When you're snacking throughout the day, I take a muffin tray, and every morning I fill up the muffin tray. I go through the fridge and the pantry, whatever I have, that's handy with cut up fruits and vegetables, some nuts, some nut butters, some gluten-free crackers, whatever it may be. And I try to look at the tray and I go, okay, did I get every color in, right? I'm not going to put candy in there. And now the kids, if they're home or if the neighborhood kids are coming over, they know whatever's in the muffin tray, they're welcome to grab, right? And same with me. So anytime I'm going downstairs, I work from home, obviously. I'll take a pause, go get a little snack. And I make sure that it's a healthy snack with some protein. The other thing is with fiber. So more protein and more plants. Okay. They say an average American eats 3 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And in that, they count ketchup and French fries, when we actually need 7 to 13 servings. Okay. So throughout the day, can you make sure that half of your plate is coming from the vine, so to speak, fruits, vegetables, berries? Can you get in every color every day? All right. So more fiber from your plants, more nutrients from your plants. Okay. As well as more protein is really going to make a big difference. And then not skipping meals. Okay. Can you really cut out your refined carbohydrates, your snacky foods? For those of you that are trying to go gluten-free, we have to look at not just taking out gluten, but what are you replacing it with? So the blood sugar management is a deep dive, but just know it is relevant to your adrenal well-being. Okay. Because if you go too long without eating, or you've been eating the wrong foods and your blood sugars crash, your adrenals crash along with it because it's perceived as stress. Okay. So now your hormones are out of whack, your mood is out of whack, you're irritable, you're cranky. And now it takes time to recover. And then in the middle of the night, you're waking up because you didn't get proper nutrition throughout the day. Okay. I talked about sleep, exercise, blood sugar management. The next thing would be adaptogens. Hopefully, if you've been in my space at all, you hear me talk about adaptogens a lot. So they come from the plant, botanical, and mushroom kingdom. They help the body better adapt to stress. Okay, your adaptogens are friends to your adrenals. They do lots of different things and lots of different organs, and they augment resistance to stress. Okay, so holy basil tea, kava, chaga, reishi, ashwagandha, dark chocolate, CBD oil, to name a few. For those of you who haven't already grabbed my free adaptogen elixir recipes, you're welcome to grab them down in the show notes. So as summary from diet modification in this blood sugar management conversation is more plants, right? Carbs are good. I'm not opposed to carbs. Just eat the right ones and in balance. Okay. Make sure you're mirroring the carbohydrates with fat, protein, fiber. Okay. I didn't mention quality fat, but that's a really important piece, even in the blood sugar conversation. So once again, your nuts, your seeds, your nut butters, your avocados, using your MCT oil, avocado oil, olive oil. Okay. One kind of way to think about it from a diet modification perspective, especially in the realm of gut health, is remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, rebalance, retest. So remove. What are the foods you want to remove? Your sugars. Okay. Your processed foods, your fried foods, your pro-inflammatory foods. What do you replace them with? Your anti-inflammatory foods, your fruits, vegetables, and berries, your quality protein, quality fats. Reinoculate. What does that mean? That means we add in healthy probiotic-rich foods to help the gut, because remember, the adrenals are in constant communication with the entire body, right? Our thyroid, our ovaries, our gut, our brain. And so we want to re-inoculate with those healthy probiotics. So, for many of you, my preference is that we can see a GI map test before you go out and just grab any random probiotic or load up on too many probiotic-rich foods. But in general, your non-dairy yogurts, kefirs, kombucha, miso, tempeh, sauerkrauts, right? All of your probiotic-rich foods, okay? And then I said repair. That's done with, usually if you come in and work with me in one of my programs and we order a GI map test, then me and the dietitian look at that and we can help you have a really personalized approach to repair any gut dysbiosis. And that's then going to support your adrenals, because once again, we want your nervous system to feel safe. We want your body to feel in balance. Okay. And then in all those R's, I said retest, right? So then we'll redo a Dutch Plus test, maybe 6 to 12 months later. Okay. We'll redo a GI map test, maybe 6 to 12 months later. And that way we can watch progress over time. Okay. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention magnesium as an important one. For some, zinc and selenium. Rich foods are also really powerful here. Okay. So once again, simply going to your nuts and seeds. But most women, I think, really benefit from supplementing with magnesium. I've mentioned cutting out caffeine. Okay. I know for many of you, you feel like you need caffeine to have energy, but really, truly, most of the women that I work with, particularly those that are tired or have anxiety, they cut the caffeine out and we find the right substitutes instead. And now their energy is phenomenal. It's sustained and the anxiety often goes away. Adding in quality electrolytes can be really potent depending on what stage of adrenal fatigue you're in. And then any other any other supplements that I wanted to mention just as I finish this up. I'm just about done. For many, a methylated B complex is really potent. I don't have my favorite just to announce here on the podcast. I really prefer to kind of make that personalized for you, but a methylated B complex can be really helpful. Making sure that you're taking a quality omega supplement. That does not mean it has to be fish oil. I've used a vegan omega by Juice Plus for the past, maybe 7 years. Vitamin D as in dog is valuable for pretty much everybody. Okay, so a magnesium, vitamin D as in dog, adaptogens, and a methylated B complex and a quality omega, pretty much good for the masses. Okay, and then vitamin C, it is preferential to the adrenals. So the adrenals are happy to receive vitamin C. I will say if you're going to add in vitamin C, it's a great antioxidant. My preference is that you make sure it's liposomal. And somebody says, well, what's liposomal? You'll just see when you're buying your vitamin C, it will say right on there, liposomal, Liposomal. And you could get it in liquid form or supplemental form. And yeah, I think that's it. So if you'd like to, some people say, well, how do I order a Dutch test? You can reach out to me. We can get it ordered, and I have lots of different ways that women come into my space. You are welcome to email successadvisor@marayabrown.com, and Maraya is Maraya. So once again, email successadvisor@marayabrown.com and just say, hey, I'm curious. I think I might have adrenal fatigue. I have questions about what it would look like to get a GI map test and get a Dutch Plus test, and how does Maraya read it? And what do you mean there's other master coaches? Because depending on which doorway you come in, I have self-paced courses, there's VIP days, there's also a mastermind program with other master coaches. Currently, right now, that's a sexologist, a mindset coach, a dietitian, a trauma release specialist, and me. And they are, in my opinion, some of the best in their industry. And we bring it all together to really support you. And then I obviously have VIP experiences for very select women. Who's that very, very ambitious CEO? And then also the in-person retreats. But generally when it comes to lab review and stuff, that's not covered at the in-person retreats. That's just time for the lioness to come alive and for you to tap into and turn on and really do the work to get clear on what is my essence. Who is it that I really want expressed out in the world, and allow that to come alive. So the last thing I wanted to say is I mentioned I would talk about how much time, and this takes time. So if your adrenals have crashed or your thyroid has crashed and you've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, I'm going to assume you really need some extra love and support. And so for you to start integrating some of these things that I suggested, maybe if you do all of them, it takes you over your edge and it's too much. Or maybe you're like, I don't want to do this alone. I need accountability. I need hand-holding. Well, reach out. But really, it's a 6 to 12 month commitment of consistent steps over time, consistent mindfulness, consistent shift in how we think, how we move, really addressing our sleep and our nutrition and our personalized supplementation to give the adrenals that extra deep love and support. And I promise, for the women that come into my space for the year-long mastermind experience, as long as they take steps, like this, my work does not work if you just buy a thing and don't do anything with it. It's like you don't get to go buy the beautiful salad and have it go rotten in the drawer of your fridge. It actually has to get into your body, right? So as long as you take the steps, you receive the support that's available, and you do the things that are asked of you by me and the master coaches, the results are spectacular. I have testimonial upon testimonial upon testimonial of women from all walks of life, all stages of adrenal fatigue, and they say, that was the year that transformed the rest of my life. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I have this card right here on my desk. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to close this out. This is so beautiful. So this is from a woman who graduated from my year-long mastermind, and she sent me this beautiful handwritten card. And I'm not going to use her name because if you're listening, you know who you are, but I feel like I would ask her permission first. But I keep it here on my desk, and it just, I don't know, it's so beautiful. So let me finish this podcast with this beautiful, beautiful letter from an alumni of the Women's Vibrancy Code, year-long mastermind. She says, "Dearest Maraya, I've had a letter written to you for ages. Today is the day to get it on paper," with a big heart. Thank you. "For a dear friend, for partnering with me, for being the wise woman I needed to help me reclaim myself. You and your beautiful program came just at the right time. And as you assured me, the money was always there to pay for it. I am now in a really good place. My energy is back, my sleep, my thyroid is healed, my gut health is better and better. The work left to do is obvious. The path ahead is clear. Thanks to you and Katie Chapman, I have cleared all of the pathogens from my gut, including 100% eradication of H. pylori, and am now healing, now in the last phase of repair. I'm thrilled. My thyroid is totally healed, all labs gorgeous. Those antibodies that were rising are back down. Here's what I did. Continued adrenal and gut work, plus added in ashwagandha, evening adaptogen elixirs, daily sea vegetables, mostly dulse, improved sleep, lots more boundaries and joy. I also stopped using headphones and held my thyroid with my hands and sent love to it. Sleep, this is so interesting. I've been tracking sleep on my moon cycle bleeding log that you gave me for months. As of now, I'm sleeping at least 7 hours straight, sometimes 9 hours. I'm doing all the things you said. I've discovered that I need them all, and joy was the missing piece. Finally feeling grateful and joyful is necessary. It makes so much sense and took so long for me to figure out. My energy is good, steady. I even feel kind and buoyant. Things that felt way too hard, like raking leaves, fixing the house, running a business, are easy now. I'll do another Dutch test soon and expect my adrenal function to be markedly improved. And I'm losing weight. You said that when I find the right way, it will feel as light as a feather to put into action. It does. I'm walking 3 miles 5 days a week with friends, and I'm fasting starting at 6 p.m. I don't know if I mentioned that for those of you listening. I really do prefer that you stop caloric intake at within 4 hours of going to bed. I tend myself in the evening with love and sink into my cozy bed with a novel by 7 p.m., asleep by 9 p.m. My mom taught me to split wood, so I'm starting to do that in addition to walking. Such a workout. And in the weekends, my son and I hike, rake leaves, garden, so more movement, fewer calories, and none after dinner, more sleep, more happiness. I reworked my online course, marketed it, and now I'm launching it today. I have a nice group of participants who just got their first module from me, and working to have restored myself deeply. This has resulted in me giddily tossing my CEO hat back on and diving in. the framework I gained has been really helpful. So for those of you listening to this, yes, women come into my space, and obviously it's through the lens of our energy, our hormones, our libido, our health. But inevitably, once they start feeling better, then they start asking questions about relationships, about who do I want to really be in the world. Often they change careers. And for this woman, she put her CEO hat back on in a really big way. And throughout our year, I was able to really support her in her business development as well. And that's not everybody. There are some CEOs that come into my space that are, well ahead of me, 7, 8, 9-figure earners. But there are others that they get to learn from me in that way as well, because I have built a successful business and have a team and all the things. Okay, back to the letter. Today I began a new moon cycle. My energy is quiet and excited. I've been resting, planning, visioning by the fire. It's so restorative. Thank you, Maraya. Your gifts to me have been plentiful and have impacted me in every aspect of my life. I'm so grateful. Oh my gosh, it makes me cry. I've read this before, but reading it again, it's so good. P.S. I'm living the life I've always wanted now, all thanks to restoring myself. Living a handmade life is everything to me. I'm sewing, knitting, mending, fermenting, cooking gorgeous food, gardening, grounding my own medicinal herbs, freezing food for the winter, splitting and stacking our firewood, creating habitat for bees and butterflies and hummingbirds. And it's working. We see more and more of them, honoring our ancestors, delighted in the seasons, the moon, the weather, whatever it's going on in the moment, cultivating a meaningful and beloved local community and sisterhood. These were all things that when she came to work with me, she was craving for, but didn't have the energy. And so I ask you, what are the things that you are craving for? For me, I don't necessarily feel excited to sew and knit and mend and ferment and grow a garden and chop my own wood. I want to travel, and I want to impact a lot of lives out in the world and write and publish a book and be a keynote speaker in places and work with potent, powerful CEOs in the world that have a big ripple effect. But what is it for you? When you think about these symptoms that I mentioned at the beginning, feeling tired and not sleeping and hormone imbalances and water retention and weight gain and hair loss and rashes and loss of appetite and allergies, right? Whatever it may be, how is that impacting your life, and what dreams feel blunted, right? So for her, she says, I'm living the life I've always wanted to. And she's restored back to herself because she did this work with me for the year. Okay, just finishing up the letter. And now building a company, a business, a program for women that helps me share my wisdom, my methods, my experience. It's an incredible life and seems to just get better and better. Thank you so much for helping me to create this for myself and my son. Pretty potent, right? So, adrenals, they're important. Stress reduction is important. You prioritizing yourself is important. And for the ambitious woman that's out there and you keep putting it to the side, putting out the fire that's in front of you, knowing that your health can wait, I would like to tell you, you can either invest now or invest much more heavily in the future. That's with time, energy, and money. So no, it can't wait. And what I also believe and know to be true is the more we wait on our foundational well-being, our cellular health, our adrenal well-being, our hormonal health, then the work that we're doing and the ways in which we're serving people is half-ass. It's not being given from a filled up cup. And whomever is receiving from us is not receiving our fullest potential. So really, truly, when I invite you to come in and take this seriously, I mean it. So that way you can serve the people in the world that you serve and serve them profoundly from the best version of you, from the filled up version of you. And with that, this is a long podcast. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, almost Happy New Year if you're listening to this right when it launches. So thrilled to support you in whatever way, shape, or form. Please email successadvisor@marayabrown.com with any questions. And with that, until next time. Thanks for listening to the show today. I know you have lots of choices and live a very productive life, as we all do. I appreciate that you've allowed me to dive deep in your journey of feeling turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself. I trust you learned something, expanded your self-reflection, and you're grateful we shared this time together. Connect with me at www.thewomensvibrancycode.com or on all social media platforms and YouTube by searching for Maraya Brown, Maraya Brown. Lastly, if you've found value in what we chatted about in this episode, please consider leaving me a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. It helps others discover the podcast and get a feeling for the wonderful community we've all created together. As for now, I'm Maraya Brown, and you've been listening to the Women's Vibrancy Code.